In the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout, I'm Ayodele Ozubaku. Today on the program, Senate moves to whittle down IGP's powers, decentralizes police structure as bandits kill over 20 vigilantes in Niger State and demand 200 million naira ransom for fresh abductors in Abuja. Court jails professor for manipulating election results for APC and Akpabio. And later on the show, I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Adekunle Yusuf. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us. The much talked about decentralization of policing in Nigeria may be getting to listening ears after all. The Senate has introduced a bill titled the Nigerian Police Act 2020 Amendment Bill 2021, seeking to enhance operational capacity of the police by decentralizing the command structure and whittle down the power of the Inspector General of Police. Babajide, the almighty Inspector General of Police. We have 774 local governments in Nigeria. We have over 200 million people, but there's one man seated in Abuja that is in charge of the central command system of the Nigerian police structure. So across the board, as enshrined in our constitution, 1999 constitution as amended, that it is the sole responsibility of the federal government. And being the federal government responsibility, somebody seated in Abuja, and they have been clamor for this to be amended. But I think the Senate is moving in that direction now.
Well, I can say that the overriding goal is state police. Everyone knows that under the current structure, centralized structure of the police in our country, it's difficult to achieve effectiveness in terms of service delivery. It's difficult for them to cover the whole country. It's difficult to have that kind of command structure and be certain that we will have effective policing and we'll be able to solve all kinds of problems relating to commission of crime and all that. So many people have been arguing that, look, it's about time that we had state police. But state police cannot come unless we amend the constitution. Because the constitution says clearly that there shall be one police. So by the time every state begins to have its own police, then the letters of the constitution will have been negated, because it's clear that the constitution says there shall be one police. Now, can we continue to maintain this structure? The answer is no. Given what we've seen across the states, it is evident that the police need help. And the reason a lot of us take community policing seriously, because we have seen that with community policing, some of the burden on the neck of the police can at least be taken off the police. For example, under this current IG, community policing has been given so much support because the IG more or less takes it as its own baby. But with Amotekun, for example, is still part of community policing, and you see that the IG even helped to establish a kind of structure by which Amotekun or any other group similar to it can function, but work with the police. They will not have prosecutorial powers, but the police will still retain prosecutorial powers. But when Amotekun arrests people, they are obligated to take them to the police, who keep them in their custody and take them to court as the case may be. So now what I see is the author of this bill is trying to achieve some of the aims that the apostles of state police have always wanted. The apostles of state police are saying that under the current centralized structure, we are not achieving enough. And that if it's decentralized through state policing, we can begin to reap some benefits therefrom. Now, you can see that the whole idea is to even set up kind of policing structure, zonal policing structure that would have access to funds, that would not be hampered by the overall leadership that the IG represents. And then even at the zonal level, you also have advisory councils that can monitor what the police is doing at that level. So if they have both operational and budgetary powers, it's as simple as creating state police through other means. It achieves the aim of decentralizing the police and ensuring that it's much more nimble, ensuring that the police is much more effective in the discharge of its duties. Or whether this will see the light of day is an answer that's blowing in the wind.
I'm looking at it from the sense that we've always been used to this this arrangement, and to alter it now, how do we start? Okay, let's say the constitution is amended, and a lot of people are saying that, look, this can be subject to abuse, that they're afraid. Now, those for or against, right now, this is 2011, people have been agitating that even there should be police at the local government level, apart from even those ones that are in the state.
Well, if you look at the state of insecurity in Nigeria, I'm sad that we are still not behaving as if we have a big problem in our hands. If we do, part of what I expect, to hear from the authorities, we embrace reality, do things that work elsewhere, and we know what works elsewhere. Community policing, state policing, whatever you want to call it, but certainly not what the government has been doing in recent, months. Community policing or state policing, we know what it is all about. This one that they're trying to do now, go and study it. You just want to expand the bureaucracy.
Really?
You still go and read it very well. We want to expand the bureaucracy. If you want to do...
But instead, it's geared towards whittling down the powers of the Inspector General of Police.
You can always... The problem of policing in Nigeria is not only Inspector General of Police. If you want to do a country as big as Nigeria, we are not the only big countries in the world. You can devolve powers if you want to do so, but how do you do it? When you do community policing, there is no way you will bring somebody for Ronu to come and police a community in Ekiti. The essence of community policing is that people in an area, employed, maybe by local government or state or whatever, either through partnership or whatever, then the police, they understand the terrain, they understand the geography, the psychology, the sociology, the everything. Psyche. So they are not just policing their community, they are doing things for themselves because they have this psychological attachment to where they come from. And it's very, very rare to now sabotage, themselves. You understand my point? In America, where they say...
When they're using sheriff, if a new person comes to that county.
In America, the federal, the central government has police.
FBI.
The state police is even as big, if not bigger, in some states than the federal. You see NYPD.
LAPD.
New York Police Department. Very strong, efficient. If you go, the university I attended in Wisconsin, Madison, has a police of its own, fully.
University.
Yes, University of Wisconsin, you know. The state of, the county, that is Madison, the state capital, we call it Dane County, has its own police. The state has its own. Then we're talking about, so it's not a big deal. Of course, you may say we are not yet developed. Believe me, in life, change is always something that people always fear. But this is not something that we have not done in Nigeria before. We used to have, local, when we were doing, regions. You understand my point? We say, okay, some governors, we abuse it. We try something, we go through it. If there are, mistakes here and there, this can be worked out. But given the enormity of problems we have today, why don't we embrace the reality? This idea of, state police being advanced by, the government as we see it, it has not worked. Because over the years, those who believe in true federalism have been saying it. Nigeria needs, police at the lower levels. And that means if you do that, you will devolve power. Not only power, you will also devolve resources. You understand my point? So there's a lot that is embedded into it. And it means it affects everything from the economy to everything.
Where we are now, this structure, Adekunle Yusuf is saying that this is not in any way referring to state police, but it's just to expand the bureaucracy. I don't know, maybe you agree with him.
No, it is a means of getting as close as we can to state police, and probably ultimately.
That might not even be the nomenclature. But
no, you can see from the way that bill was framed is like taking some steps towards state police. That's the whole idea. Everyone can see that the current structure cannot work. The current centralized structure is no longer working. Oh. You can see what happened in Oyo and see the moves that Makinde has made. Makinde has now brought all the law enforcement agencies, including Amotekun, brought all of them together to work at securing, to work towards securing the state. Now, with all of them together, they ransacked 3 different forests in Oyo, and you can see now that the situation is a lot better than before now. What that governor has done is to bring everyone together, including even Fulanis. They included Fulanis amongst those who went to raid those forests. This is what many Nigerians are not even aware of. Now, he is trying to see how he can harmonize all the policing resources available, whether they are under the control of the federal government or those that are under the control of the state. So all the policing resources, all the law enforcement resources available is brought them together to work for the goal of securing the state. Other states are doing something similar. You see in some states like Kogi now, they are using police constabulary and the rest of them. Everyone is moving towards what ultimately will lead us to state police. Everyone is coming up with alternative policing arrangement. In Niger State, where bandits have been running riot and are actually literally controlling some local government, you see that the state is encouraging vigilantes, providing resources for vigilantes. A state like Borno has done this using the civilian JTF to great effect. If you go to Borno State, you see civilian JTF working hand in hand with the military. In most cases, they are even the ones who frisk people who search vehicles and all that. So the point that I'm trying to make is that this bill, the goal of this bill is to decentralize the police and see whether that structure can work. If that structure works effectively, it then means that even state police can work. The only difference is that we still remain under the federal police structure, but in a decentralized manner.
All right, let's take Tayo. Tayo is calling us from Ilorin.
Good
Thank
afternoon, guys.
you for staying with us.
Mr. Babajide, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And to your guest, Mr. You as well.
Good afternoon.
The problem I think Nigeria is having, we are using the federal system of government. And our system that the whole country is underneath is unitary. We are copying British people. They have no state. Everything is nothing but local government. That's why they have British police from A to Z. Nigeria cannot have so many states like that without, crime is local. It's very easy to central power stays with the IG in Abuja. For how many years? They need to adjust the constitution. Do they need a president power to adjust that? They need a debate. If it's a state, if it's a county, or whatever it is they have to do.
Thank you, Tayo.
Nigeria police is too small.
He's actually talking about the need to decentralize, that the current centralized structure cannot work, which is the feeling of most people. Now, if we go to some of the prescriptions in this bill, is saying that there shall be a zonal advisory council and state security advisory council, and that these advisory councils are to be headed by governors on a rotational basis for the zones. That means like in the Northwest, for example, where you have 7 states, it will be the headship of the advisory council will be rotated among the states. So it's seeking to give states even more powers over a decentralized police. They will be able to make their input about how the police at the zonal level runs in their respective states. So the whole idea is to say, look, this thing is not working the way it is. Why don't we try to decentralize, give police at the various zones, give them prosecutorial powers, give them administrative powers, give them the financial strength to be able to run things at their level, so that everyone does not go to the Inspector General of Police for direction about where do we go and all that. Look at what happened in Benue State. We are already hearing that, oh, the IG has sent a crack team to go to Benue State to investigate. And people are asking the question, why all the time? When the trouble in your state happened, it was the same thing. They sent a team to go there, you know.
Why can't it be decentralized?
Yes, that is the point. That is what Ajibola Bashir, who is the author of this bill, that is what he seeks to achieve, from what I see. And I've seen people who have also analyzed this bill saying, look, this will take us a step closer to state police if it works. Because if the decentralized policing structure works in our country effectively, it then means that you can actually take it further down to the states.
Adekunle, a lot of people will say, they will still insist that if we don't want to go through the rigor of amending the constitution, that if the present structure is well funded, if it could be maintained and facilities and everything they need, they provide more than enough for them, that the police could be very, very effective. That's the way it has always been, that they could carry out their responsibility very well with the structure on ground, if well funded.
By who?
At the federal government.
But the federal government has never And this federal government that I know over the years, is unable to fund the Nigerian police very well. If not for the states, maybe we will not be discussing anything called Nigerian police. If not for the states and some philanthropies like Dangote and a few ones like that, there won't be any. Because what they need to work, they don't have it.
Basic things.
They don't have it. I know some paramilitary organizations, federal paramilitary organizations, that a whole command will have less than 20,000. I mean, state command, 20,000 naira per month to run the entire command. How will that work? So, as we discussed that police has problems of funding, so you have for various, paramilitary organizations. So, the federal government cannot fund the Nigerian police. The states are the ones helping. Now, this bill wants to tackle problems of administration, that let's decentralize the administration. What about other issues? Funding? What about other issues? Recruitment? What about so many other things? So when you bring police from Samfara and you take them to Osogbo, a crime, something is happening there, it will take a long number of, time to adapt to the psychology, to the culture. So if you know you want to do what is right, why don't you do it once and for all? You can't be tinkering with the Constitution every time. And it's not easy to even alter the Constitution anyway. This one, if you want to do it, after it is done, in the National Assembly, you need the states House of Assembly. And you know the process. So it is not an easy thing. Given the problems we've had lately, I believe the political elite should be man enough to do the right thing. You want to create advisory council, you involve a traditional ruler, you involve faith-based organizations, you involve this, you involve that. Why are you expanding the bureaucracies? For an organization that is not having enough money in the first place. So, believe me, I don't believe it's an idea that can work. Let's do what works. The sponsor, the person who sponsored this bill knows what is right. I know he's just trying his best. They can do more. The National Assembly can help Nigeria to say, okay, what we have seen lately, let us do this. On their own, they can get it done within a short time. Give Nigerian, states the power to have police. Then, when you do it, so that when Lagos State government is talking about police, these are people recruited by the state from the state, and they will not go and work in Sambisa or anywhere. They are going to work in Lagos State. If you go to Osun, or you have that. If you go to Kano, you will have that. You will realize that most problems will be solved. I'm talking about insecurity problems because crime is always local.
All right. We'll take this break. When we come back, we'll discuss more. It's still Journalist Hangout. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Babajide, now looking at this arrangement now, we still have the state of insecurity all around the north. Niger State, now, bandits killed over 20 vigilantes in Niger State and demand 200 million naira ransom every day.
That's in Abuja.
Yes.
From abductees.
So, for some abductees in Abuja, yes. So, these people are still running riots while we are still debating insecurity, state police, and Nigerians are just waiting that, is there not a way that the federal government can clamp down on these people? They are growing in numbers and it's a very lucrative business.
Yes. I was reading something today where a woman wrote an article saying, look, banditry has remained very lucrative in Nigeria, and the schools will continue to come under attack from bandits because they know the ransom will be paid and all that. it's difficult to not pay ransom when you can't provide security for people. What you must do is to secure the people. But where they are able to take students the way they have done, then government will have to find a way to get those students out of their clutches, and it may involve paying ransom. If it's individuals that they are picking here and there, the family members will have to sort out
the ransom.
And most times they don't involve the police.
No, they always advise that don't get the police involved.
Why?
If you get the police involved, we'll kill the person. You know, so people will get the job done on their own, and sometimes police will go and claim that they are the ones who secure the release of those people. And some gullible Nigerians will also believe.
So we can't even keep track on the number, and we can't keep the track of the amount paid every day.
It's impossible. Apart from states like Kano, where such crimes are a reality, in places like Kaduna and the rest of them, people get kidnapped every day, and families sort themselves out. The same thing in Kogi. So many, my cousin was kidnapped, and ransom of 3.5 million was paid. Because even when you tell the police or get people involved, when you see that they are not achieving anything, ultimately you tell yourself that, look, you know, you just tell yourself that, look, the best thing to do is to...
Instead of allowing the person to be killed.
Yes, because the longer that person stays with them, the greater the chances of the person being killed by this individual. So this is the thing. We've got to find a way. Ordinarily, banditry should be the responsibility of the police. But now we are getting soldiers involved. We are getting soldiers involved now. Still, we cannot deal with the problem. It's symptomatic of the collapse of security in our country. I think the police has to be sufficiently funded. I'm impressed by the effort that has been made to find a base, a financial base for the police through the Police Trust Fund Establishment Act. But as we have seen, the act was signed in June 2019. Is still work in progress in terms of getting the funds, because it's supposed to be 0.05%, 0.5% of the funds from the federation account that will be used to fund the police. You can say that that kind of money will go a long way, but the problem now has been accessing the funds. Accessing the funds. We are in an environment where even revenue generating agencies are not remitting as and when due. So that itself constitutes a threat to the success of that of that initiative, because some of the funds that should come to them, we discussed this some weeks back, some of the funds that should come to the police through this Police Trust Fund Establishment Act did not come in, because some individuals that are meant to remit simply refuse to do that. So we have to find a way to fund the police. The police can't depend on the Dangotes of this world buying vehicles for them, or state government buying vehicles for them and all that. From the federation account, the police has to be effectively funded, and they should be on the first line charge. Their funds should go directly to them, because they are the ones who need it. Their funds should not be subject to even manipulation by evil civil servants who ensure that sometimes police don't even get paid on time. Their salaries are delayed. So there has to be an effective way of funding the police so that it can rise up to the challenges that confront us as a nation.
But why do you think we don't have the political will of going the whole hog, amending that constitution, to, and imputing, removing the policing from the exclusive list and putting it on the concurrent list?
Why we don't have the political will? If you go to the north, I come back to the south, you will know that the sentiments are not the same. the way we see things are not the same. What you think will favor you here, some other people believe will not favor him or her. You understand me? Until we have a chief
I think we're saying NSAS.
you thank God, God bless you. So there are so many things you can just study them.
Police brutality is not rampant in the north, but it's rampant here.
It's rampant here. So why is it not rampant in the north? That's another thing for people to study. Why is it rampant here? That's another thing. But the truth is that in terms of culture, in terms of so many things, we are not the same. And you have to understand that. And it's not a bad thing. And that's why we're a federation. It's actually a good thing, diversity. But we are seeing the problems and the challenges we have are the same. Insecurity in Kano is insecurity. Even when it gets to Lagos, it is also insecurity. Banditry in Maduguri, if it enters Osun, it's also banditry. Kidnapping in Ogbomoso, if it gets to Akwa Ibom, it's also kidnapping. You understand the point I was trying to make? So if you understand this, and all of us want a better country, we will need to say, okay, how do we have a meeting point? Because at some point, okay, look, okay, if you look at what Jide said the other time, that now that banditry, they now go to school to abduct people, it's because we didn't solve this problem. I mean, nip it in the bud. Now, they have taken over.
I have to leave it there.
Okay.
Now, doomsday is here for electoral offenders in Nigeria. A high court in Ikotekpene, Akwa Ibom State has sentenced the professor at the University of Calabar, Peter Ogba, to 3 years in prison for announcing false election results during the 2019 general election. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, told the court that Professor Ogban altered the results of Orok, Anam, and Etim Ekpo local government areas to favor the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, that is Godswill Akpabio, who was seeking re-election to the Senate. Jide, this is very interesting.
Yeah, and there were so many cases of manipulation of results by individuals who are supposed to organize the elections in the first place. But it's significant that it was in Akwa Ibom that this judgment came. In many cases, it's the police that will even frustrate the prosecution by not providing the police report that will indict the individuals.
So this one, INEC?
This one, INEC was resolute.
Yes.
And the first thing the judge did was to establish whether INEC had prosecutorial powers. Once it's established that INEC has prosecutorial powers, then it becomes clear that a lack of police report cannot debar INEC from proceeding with the prosecution
electoral offenders.
Of electoral offenders. So once the judge established that, he then moved on, to address the 3-count charge against this professor. So the first count, he was found guilty of announcing a fake result. After the judge listened to his plea, the judge then fined him 100,000. But on the second count, which is announcing that fake result, the judge jailed him for 3 years without an option of fine, which is what makes it yes, because the judge invoked section 123 subsection 4 of the 2019 Electoral Act as amended and said, this is what the law says. He's going to jail. Remember before now, Professor Jega, who came up with the idea of using university lecturers in our elections, he expressed concern at an event that a lot of these lecturers were in bed with politicians.
Yes.
These lecturers were helping politicians to rig elections. The fact that somebody went to school abroad, is a professor of law, is a professor of this, is a professor of that, does not make him a moral giant. He could actually be a moral midget. You know? So that somebody is a professor does not mean that standing side by side with other Nigerians that is a moral specimen.
Professor Jega in bringing his university colleagues, vice chancellor, professors.
Now you see the mistake that INEC is making, that the current INEC chairman too continues to make, is the assumption that these academics are rarefied people that no, they are fantastic moral specimens. Absolute rubbish. They are not. A lot of them have rigged the election in barefaced fashion. So what we have now, let me tell you, if INEC staff, permanent INEC staff, I'm not talking about ad hoc people, permanent INEC staff, you need that, especially when you are doing what's it called, this off-season elections. Why don't you just go, if an election is taking place in Lagos, the closest state to Lagos is Ogun State. It's a spitting distance. Get INEC staff, INEC staff, permanent staff there. Those who are civil servants, who know that they could damage their own careers if they compromise. Use them. But no, you will go and bring one professor from somewhere who needs a hefty halogen lamp to read an election result. You go and bring them, and then you will see compromise. Yes, we see compromise in action. You see, use those people, use those INEC staff. They will be scared to damage their own careers.
Okay,
this is the thing. Now we have this situation now. What I want to see is, let other states, other recs, make examples of people who try to rig election. I said at that time that Akpabio cannot win that election if they do it a million times. I kept saying it.
And you must commend the rec, Igini.
Yes, and the other people.
What's the name of this our activist?
Mike Igini. That's the type of human beings that we need in sensitive positions in Nigeria. You know, he brought his civil service activism thing into that office, and it's so difficult for anybody to influence him.
Yes.
And he kept shouting, despite the fact that Akpabio and his group started using the media
to rubbish him.
They were even claiming that he stole
it. He was so vociferous to say anything, if you have anything to indict, that is ready. That if you have anything to bring it. And at the end of the day, you know, Akpabio was even saying that it is the reg that robbed him of.
Yes. And because they couldn't bring 50,000 votes.
Very soon, God will expose who is this. Now God has exposed.
The thing is, there was a 50,000 votes. He was trying to bring in 50,000 votes to beef up the result of a Sianudim. Whereas the total accredited voters was 16,000. So where is the 50,000? Go and read the report of the tribunal. When the tribunal called for a fresh election, which Ekpeyon won again, the tribunal said only 16,000 were accredited. You can't bring in these 50,000 votes. So it is only these people, politicians cannot rig.
The serving minister
it doesn't even matter where he is. No, let's
fighting corruption. They've jailed the person involved now.
So now, see, you can say that I didn't send him on errand. You know how this they will get one son with big beards. He will tell you that he did not send him on that.
The process just did this video.
He just did it on his own. Let's leave that one. Let's leave that one. Let's leave where we are. Our problem is not with Akpabio. Our problem is with
the system.
The system allows people to rig for politicians and get away with it. When we start having elections that are impossible to rig, this kind of things will not be happening.
This is a kind of example.
Make examples of people who,
and it will be a local. It will be a reference point. Let's listen to the lawyers.
The judgment just delivered was incisive, highly well researched, very brilliant, and has served the cause of justice.
and test if what was done here was done rightfully, and we intend to explore that option. For now, it's unfortunate that a person will be deprived of his liberty, and we hope that it will be just for a little while.
Okay, joining us live is Cynthia Mbamalu, the project manager for Yiaga Africa, and Yiaga Africa has been at the vanguard of electoral reform. Cynthia, hi.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Cynthia. Now, the professor that announced that result in Ofu local government is going to jail for 3 years. What do you make of this?
Well, I think, one, this is progress because we've always been advocating for the need to prosecute electoral offenders, and that is important because if you do not prosecute, you would create a system that enables the culture of impunity, which is what we've been having since. I was listening to the conversation. You cannot have returning officers who make it their duty to rob the voters, the citizens, of their will. When people vote, their votes should count. But when we have individuals like this professor who make attempts to manipulate the system, then the law should come hard on them. And I believe this is a precedent that we want to see happening across different states. Because I know the INEC's role is to prosecute offenders. The cases can be brought at the state level and the state high court. We want to see more electoral offenders prosecuted and serving their terms. Now, that is the only way we can deter this sort of abuse and manipulation in the system. But in addition to this, is to say that he is just one person. There were other electoral offenders, and the slow pace in prosecuting offenders is also affecting the credibility of the process, and is promoting this culture of impunity where people believe they can act with disregard of the existing laws and procedures in our country. So it's also a call for a review of our electoral laws, because one, we do need an electoral offences commission and tribunal, and because currently the process or the system that we have is not effectively serving its purpose, which is ensuring that offenders are adequately prosecuted in due time. So I do believe that this is also an opportunity for us to call on the National Assembly to, as a matter of urgency, consider the review of the proposed bill on the Electoral Offences establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal. Let's have that conversation so that it is part of the bills that would be passed alongside the Electoral Amendment Bill.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the things that the judge said in open court in his 3-hour judgment. The need to find a solution to compromise on the part of the police. A lot of lawyers complain that when they want to prosecute these fellows, that the police are usually not forthcoming with their report and all that. So the judge affirmed that INEC has the power on its own, whether there is a police report or not, to prosecute. Are we going to now see INEC
More prosecution.
prosecuting more offenders now based on the affirmation by this judge that you really do not need the police report as INEC to proceed with prosecution?
Well, I think the court's decision, this is true because by Electoral Acts, if you look at sections 150, sub 1 and 2, INEC has the power to prosecute offenders through its legal officers or even legal practitioners it engages. So INEC does have that power. But what is the existing capacity, of INEC? Currently, even the legal team of INEC is not, they are not sufficient to adequately prosecute offenses. Now we're looking at, let's talk about the general presidential elections, for instance. We're talking about the elections that happen at least 101,973 polling units. This is not in addition to voting points, over 50,000 voting points that we have. and across the 8,809 wards. So, and at these levels, there are several offences going on at that level. So what you have, if you follow the trend of electoral offences, the commission, we have lots of cases. But if you follow the pace, you see that we have not even scratching the surface. So INEC is prosecuting. They don't need, yes, the INEC has the power to do that. But INEC has, in previous years, cried out and said, we don't have sufficient human resource and financial resource to do this, in addition to all the other responsibilities that we have. We should remember that this is also in addition to INEC being called to court as a defendant in other electoral related matters in court, and then the constant conducting of elections that we have. So if we want to really have an effective system, having one case, like we're celebrating this case in Akwa Ibom, is not sufficient. We need to have a lot more prosecution. And if the commission has consistently said the resources and both financial and human resource we have is not sufficient, because we can only work with the legal team that we have. I remember the last count, they didn't have barely about 100 or so legal personnel, and this is to respond to the cases across the country, from both presidential elections to state level elections and by-elections, because every elections there is an offender who needs to be prosecuted. So in light of this, it's one thing for the court to state this, but we also need to ensure that our laws are realistic. Why, for one, do we need to have only INEC take the responsibility of prosecuting offenders? Can we, like what we have in other clients, take this responsibility from the Electoral Commission, put it in an independent body that has the sole responsibility of prosecuting offenders, or even have a joint system where you also have the police taking that responsibility? Because currently, the pace in prosecution is really slow, and we're not having the level of efficiency that we require in that sector to actually deter offenders. So what we have are people who carry out as if no one can hold them accountable, because they also know about the deficiency within the Electoral Commission. In addition to that, beyond time frame, you're also looking at there are instances where you have the Attorney General also go and enter. The AG still has the power of not to prosecute, as it is in sections 174 of the Constitution. So you also have that challenge of cases that could be discontinued at the authority of the Attorney General. So we're also looking at how do we have a legal framework that sufficiently supports the adequate prosecution of electoral offenders, because we cannot consistently live with the excuse or the challenge by INEC that they do not have sufficient power. Professor Jega lamented under his time. Professor Mahmoud is also lamenting, saying we can't sufficiently prosecute offenders because we are overburdened. Can we have this responsibility placed somewhere else so that this can be quite efficient? And I think that is something we need to begin to consider as a people, if we really want to see the culture of impunity reduced in our electoral process.
Okay, would your organization, come up with a bill toward this effect? Sponsor a bill towards this effect? I mean, coming up with the Electoral Offences Commission separate from INEC. Would you consider it?
Yes, there's a bill currently before the Senate, and we're also supporting the Senate committee on INEC at the Senate level to review the bill. So one of the goals actually is to have a public hearing. So the Senate is going on recess. The plan is to have that once they resume from the 13th of April, because we also believe that we need to have this bill presented at public hearing. The Senate committee has said they have a bill and they would be calling for public hearing to get citizens' input in that particular process, because it's not just a mechanical conversation. We also need to look at what is feasible, what is realistic. We don't want to create a body for the sake of creating the body. We also want to ensure that there's value for money, that if we're creating a separate institution for this, we need the inputs from both the legal, from the civil society partners and other technical partners to ensure that whatever establishment or body we are creating adequately serves the purpose not just for the sake of creating one. So there should be a public hearing sometime soon, and we're hoping National Assembly makes this a priority issue in line with the
Thank you,
electoral
Cynthia.
reforms priority.
Thank you, Cynthia. Our time is fast spent. Thank you, Cynthia Mbamalu, Project Manager of Yaga Africa. We meet on the field every other time when we have this off-season election. Hope to meet you in Anambra State. Cynthia.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
On the final notes, I've said it, and these are the pitfalls. INET not having that capacity. It took a Mike Guinea determination that, look, we are going to do something
and the judiciary, the Akwa Ibom judiciary showed courage.
And the INEC leadership staff also supported.
Yes, even the INEC chairman himself, INEC chairman, he couldn't have done it without the INEC chairman's full support. So we want this sort of thing to happen again and again. That's the only way we can deal with electoral offenders who think that the votes of the people do not matter, who think that they can always rig elections and make the rest of us look like fools. You know, it's barbaric to rig elections. It's animalistic to rig elections. Let the people's will prevail. And if you try to stand in the way of the desires of the people, then this is the sort of treatment that you deserve. You deserve to go to jail.
She pointed out that, look, that INEC is overburdened, that there should be a commission that's saddled with responsibility of electoral offenders, that will be prosecuting electoral offenders.
Yes, the Senate, she said the Senate is considering
so that INEC can be unbundled.
That would be extremely fine, just for electoral, offenses.
Just take that system.
Then if that happens, they should make the punishment not light,
stiffer,
because when people invade our banks, steal money, we know what we do to them. We call them armed robbers.
Like this.
So they should be treated the same way, like armed robbers, if not worse than. Because when you steal people's votes, you steal the future of that state or community or country. It's worse than armed robbers who go to the banks.
We'd like to thank you, Adekunle Yusuf Kuneshi. Thank you for your contribution today. And BKO, thank you for always being there. I'd like to thank Yaga Africa, Cynthia Mbamalu. And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. Don't forget to join us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. This Sunday is going to be interesting. We are on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Ozubakun. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.